Well, here we are. Welcome to the gun room. With me, I've got the podcast. I'm laughing because we've had a few technical issues and it was just like a big mist. But with me, I've got Paul. How are you, Paul?
Fine, Tom. How are yourself?
I'm not too shabby.
Yeah,
I'm living the life of Larry at the moment. All right, with the Arsenal. How are
yeah. Well,
you,
yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, all good, all good.
Look at
It's
him
good to
with
be
all
back.
his paraphernalia. Where's all yours, Paul? We got a lamp and a plant or something. What's going? Right.
I
Well,
have to work on this, but
well,
I
I've
haven't
got a
got.
backdrop that I want to put up, but I'm not allowed to stick it on the walls, you see.
It,
So
but
it's
but Jay's quite lucky because Jay's got a man's den, hasn't he? That looks like that Jay only allowed in. You only get in this room. You got an Arsenal shirt on.
that is the only corner of his house that he's allowed in.
Well,
Nobody knows that. He
well,
gets his meals there and everything.
I think Jay thinks that's the best room in the house. To be honest,
Quite happy with that.
It's
Oh,
very
well,
impressive, isn't it? I've got to say.
it looks good from here.
What's your favourite piece, Jay?
The photo with Ian Wright. Absolutely. That's he's a legend, isn't he? You know, he's like everybody universally loved by everyone. So yeah, just there. You can't
Right,
quite
well-
see it, that's just there.
Yeah, he's he's just got too much. It's disgusting how much stuff you've got there, and all those pictures with all those famous Arsenal players. Behave yourself. Well, it was my birthday when we played Bournemouth, and I got bought this. So what I do now is, whether it's ringing or not, I kind of position it like that. I go, I can't talk to you at the minute. We're top of the league. So it's absolutely brilliant. Right. The podcast is brought to you by manscaped.com for the best grooming experience below or above the waist. And so be carefree and hair-free. We've got to offer you an exclusive code for the Performance Package 4.0 Luxury Grooming Kit, and we'll give you that, if I can talk properly, at the end of the show. Right, coming up, we've got to cover the whirlwind performance at the Cottage. Well, superb win. Honestly, we will wax lyrical about that. You'll get bored with it. We've got the WSL game on a rainy, windswept Boreham Woods ground. I tell you, it was torrential. It was horrible. It made the football look a bit drab. One thing I will say before we start is I think if we're going to promote the women's game, I think we have to have better stadiums to do that in, because this ground, although I'm sure they're quite happy with it and whatever, it reminded me of going to Southend United and where else is it? Wickham. I've been to Wickham, but Wickham is an upgrade on that one. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, but right, let's kick off. Melvin has given us a little insight on Twitter. He said this is the most important game of the season since our last most important game of the season. So I think I've stalled as well on screen, but never mind, we'll carry on. So the Fulham game, Jay, was it what you expected?
I'll be honest, I saw it as a bit of a potential banana skin. You know, we played in Europe. I know we rotated a few players, but I was a little bit concerned. I suppose ultimately I'm going to be that way with every game now until, you know, in the running. But I was glad to see Trossard was fit. Glad to see Erdegaard had got over his sort of illness. And I mean, we hit the ground running straight from the off, didn't we? It was a brilliant performance. I think Fulham were missing, was it Polina in midfield, who makes a massive difference for him. But pre-game, I was pretty nervous. I thought it might be a much tighter sort of affair than it actually was, and I suppose that's a testament to just how well we are playing at the moment and how confident we are.
Yeah, it's a spectacular atmosphere. I mentioned it on Mark Saggers. Name dropping, Mark Saggers. We were on there, Talk TV. Look it up. It's on YouTube. Yeah, the atmosphere was incredible. It was like we were the home crowd. I mean, all you could hear was our supporters, wasn't it? Absolutely fabulous. I wonder why you weren't tempted to go. Actually, have you been to Fulham?
I haven't. I mean, to be honest, away tickets are, I mean, they're gold dust. You can't get them. I'm going down on Sunday to the Palace game. Home tickets are a little bit easier for me to get hold of, but away games are these days they're just like gold dust. So
there's a
it
lot
looks
on
like
social media about it. It doesn't matter what your status is, your platinums and all that sort of thing. People are still struggling.
it's a real issue, yeah. And these tickets always pop up on your your touting websites or whatever for hundreds of pounds. So it's a bit rubbish, but it is what it is, I suppose. Until the club do something about it, it will always be that way. But it looks like a great away day because I saw that you can get there's like boat trips down the Thames you can get, and
That's where the boys rocked up, wasn't it? There was no coach.
Yeah, early doors on the beers, and then pop on the boat. Looks a great away day. Nice little ground, but no, I've never been. It looks good though.
Paul, have you been?
Yeah, I went to a game there. I had a long weekend in London. I think it was the weekend we played Southampton at the FA Cup semi-final at Highbury, 83-84.
Wow.
And I'd gone downstairs with my brother, who was working at Hampstead at the time. And Fulham had a home game on the Sunday. I think it might be against Southampton. I can't quite remember. So I went along to that. So it's an incredibly scenic ground, isn't it? Right on the bank of the Thames like that. It's really an iconic location. Just seems to remember, it's a hell of a walk from Putney Bridge tube station to get to the ground. It was much longer than I'd anticipated, but it's a very pleasant walk, through parks, greenery, landscape gardens and the like. So yeah,
if you've got the weather, it's great. But if it's hacking it down,
yeah. Well, I mean, was kind of April time, so it wasn't too bad weather-wise. But yeah, it's good to see Fulham back in the top flight just for the ground alone, because it definitely is one of the iconic stadiums, and I believe it's still got one of the original Archibald Leach stands that's been used as well. So that's also good to see a bit of football heritage, because obviously Archibald Leach was a massive factor in the design of Highbury back in the day. So it's good to see his legacy living on in London still.
There's a thing about grounds like Craven Cottage. Upton Park had it. There was this sort of intimate atmosphere that you get, and the cottage has still got that. I haven't been for quite a while, and I'd love to go back. But you kind of picked up that visual thing, didn't you, when the cameras were going round, and it's such an intense atmosphere. Would have loved to have been there. As I say, that game wasn't really what I expected. Let's get to the team. So it was 4-3-3. Aaron Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Gabriel, Saliba, White, Xhaka, Thomas Partey, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Trossard, and Martinelli. No real surprises there, and that's a really good team. When you saw that team come up, Paul, were you thinking, "Oh, the Arsenal have got this one right. They've got it in the bag"?
Not quite that, Tom, but I actually took more notice of who was on the bench, to be honest, just to see what options you'd have if things weren't going according to plan. So when I saw the options on the bench, I thought, wow, this is definitely an upgrade on like previous discussion we had kind of September time, when the bench was looking quite threadbare at times. So I thought that the quality of strength and depth on the bench was hugely encouraging. And Trossard, I know me and Jay talked about Trossard a couple of pods ago about what a good signing he'd be for Arsenal, and I think we undersold the guy, because the options he's given Arteta in terms of the forward line, the formation he can play, and the quality he brings to that team. So I think people might have thought there's no obvious striker here, there's no Nketiah, there's no Gabriel Jesus, but the way the team is playing with Trossard as a focal point, who's moving around the front line all the time, just created so many problems for Fulham. So yeah, I mean, there were no huge surprises to me in the team. I was kind of wondering, would Fabio Vieira be given a chance on, given his display, particularly against Sporting Lisbon? But no surprise there. And the team is just the team lineup and the bench is now starting to look like they've got enough quality there in all positions to carry on.
Trossard, Jay, he's a bit like a Perez. He's a bit like an Arshavin. He's got this combination, and a bit Santi as well, isn't he? He's got lots of things in his locker.
Yeah, he's superb. He's I'll be honest, he's even better than I thought he was, because obviously when he was at Brighton, didn't necessarily watch him every week. Popped up with plenty of goals, but his all-round contribution so good, and I didn't realise until I saw him just how short he is as well. Like he's in comparison to to the majority of the the opponents who he faces on weekly basis. He's much shorter than them, but he certainly doesn't shy away from any tackles, and he's dribbling so good, and his qualities on the quality on the ball is so good, and he's just slotted into the game plan, and he's just been part of that. Now, I mean, I suppose the narrative is that we missed out on Mudryk, and as a consequence of that, we ended up signing Trossard. It could be one of the signings of the one of our best ever signings if we go on and win the league, and he continues to contribute in that in the just the sheer amount that he's contributing at the minute. It could go down as one of the best signings that we've made, especially in January. And I mean, 3 assists in one game, that's it's relatively unheard of. You don't come across that too often. I think it was the last one was Santi, I don't know, over a decade ago. So top player, and he seems to be enjoying it. And like Paul said, having him in the team, he's it also improves. I know this sounds a really quite a bizarre thing to say, but it improves the bench, because it means that somebody, the likes of Smith Rowe or Nelson or whatever that would be playing are obviously on the bench and are an option. But great signing. I suppose he's not really scoring the goals at the rate that many people are expecting. However, his contribution's just immense, and I hope he carries on, obviously.
There was an interesting thing on social media today. CJ, who was on a couple of weeks ago, I think it was podcast 81 from AFTV, he was interviewing Edu. He gets about, doesn't he? He's a bit like Jay. He's a dark horse. And he sort of said about transfers. And Edu was really quite not only open and honest, but he was quite sort of self-facing as well, saying, look, there's a lot of people involved in this process of picking up the right players. It is a big team. It's not me. It's not Arteta. There are other people involved. And it was a bit, like all or nothing. It was a bit of an eye-opener as well. Right, let's get to that game then. From the first whistle, I felt for about 10 or 12 minutes, they really nailed us in. They had a really high press. They were forcing us back. And I thought if they could keep doing that, then we would find we've got a very awkward afternoon on our hands. But the high press kind of disappeared after a fashion. And it was after the first goal, which was disallowed. Did you notice that, Paul, that suddenly the jitters kicked in and they kind of fell away a bit? They weren't as tight as they were before, and we started finding space. Now, I'm not really sure whether it was Fulham weren't playing up to their usual standard or Arsenal were just immense.
I think it's probably a combination of both, wasn't it? I think Marcelli's burst of speed obviously put the brightness on the back four a little bit there. I thought Anthony Robertson, who never quite broke through at Everton, but he probably had his worst game in a Fulham shirt on Sunday. He looked absolutely awful, and I was quite surprised by that because I've always quite raised him as a defender. And yeah, I mean, we talk about VAR so often on this pod, haven't we? And it just seems more and more these days, VAR is like a mechanism to find a way of disallowing a goal rather than allowing a goal to stand, because that was a quality goal from every aspect, from the build-up, the play, the passing, the speed, and then to have that ruled out, it's if you're an away fan there celebrating the goal, then you think, hang on, should I be celebrating? Shouldn't I be? Should I be celebrating? It just, we said this before, it just takes all the joy out of watching the game for me, the fact that you celebrate not knowing if it's a goal or not. And I've read an article quite recently, I forget who was buying out, about how it's almost impossible now to forwards to judge if they're offside because they're being judged by laser-like technology. So you can be looking and just see out the corner of your eye that you think you're level with the defender because that's what your eyes are telling you. But back down at Stockley Park, someone's got this this beam of light just going right across the pitch to show that your big toes offside. To me, it's just so frustrating. I think you could. You sometimes when you watch a game, you sense a change in the way the direction of play is going, and you just felt with that goal there that disallowed goal, that Arsenal's first goal was coming quite soon. And as Jay mentioned there before, and you're going to talk about Trossard's involved in the first goal. Going back to what you said before as well, Jay, about those assists from Trossard. Apparently, he's the first Premier League player to have ever scored 3 assists in the first half of an away game.
Wow! Hey, get your stats out. Look at old Paul there racking them up.
Brilliant, fantastic.
There was a few good sort of tussles, and the one I picked out was Saliba versus Mitrovic. Because I'm doing that thing again. I'm stalling. It was quite because Mitrovic is a sizable oaf, isn't he? And getting around him, getting in front of him as well. And Saliba did a hell of a job because he managed to get in front of him on one particular ball. And there was a lot of physical aspects with Mitrovic that he brings to the table. So I enjoyed that. What did you? Any other tussles that you enjoyed, Jay?
I mean, I think ultimately their high press, just going back to what you were saying about the start, that their high press, that can only last for so long, because ultimately we were always going to get that period in the game where we were going to control the ball, because technically we are a better team than them, and all we had to do was start passing. And I mean, they were pressing us high, but I mean, how many times? And this has been a factor in like a massive improvement in our approach this season. Even when we are pressed high, we have that ability. It's the one-touch passing, whether it's Xhaka coming deeper or Partey coming deeper, to collect the ball, and it goes either out to the fullbacks or it goes to the centre backs. And even in tight little situations, they're managing to pass their way out of it. And if you watch it was almost as if we decided to get a foot on the ball, be a bit more confident, express ourselves a bit more. And that's when the game massively changed, because it was, if you look, I think it was it Erdegaard's goal? It starts all the way back deep in our own half, and Saliba is spreading the ball out to the left. And it's just in these little situations, I think the confidence is so high at the moment that your tussle, like you mentioned, Saliba on Mitrovic, Saliba's always going to win that at the minute, just because he's so confident, because he's so, and don't get me wrong, he still has to put the effort in, but Mitrovic is a tough opponent, and he wasn't in the game at all, was he? But, you look at, it's not just, Saliba, it's Gabriel as well at centre half. They've formed such a great partnership. But ultimately, I thought we were so dominant, especially after that disallowed goal. Obviously, scoring so early was a massive plus point, but we were so dominant that I didn't really notice, it was men against boys, I thought, for the majority of, once we got over that initial first 10, 12 minutes of them putting us under a bit of pressure, we dominated the game. And there was only ever going to be one winner.
It was probably, I'm frozen. Look, talk about technical issues. We're having everything tonight, mist, fog, all sorts. It's kind of like they were just, I think it just melted away, really. They just didn't have enough to cope with us. And for 30 minutes, we were absolutely magnificent. I think that's the best 30 minutes I've seen Arsenal play.
I think it was one of our best performances of the season. But I just going back to Trossard and the signings and these players, we've said this before, there's been a massive change in sort of the football intelligence level of this team. They're not making, and obviously this comes with training and this comes with like preparing, and Arteta and his team are obviously preparing this team to absolutely elite level. But the football awareness, that the players' awareness and their intellect and their IQ on the ball is so high now that they're able to deal with tricky situations and opponents. Don't get me wrong, look, there's a difference between going to the Etihad and going to play Fulham at Craven Cottage, but it still takes, it's still a tough game, and players like Jorginho and obviously Trossard, who we've mentioned, these are players that maybe you wouldn't necessarily, especially in Jorginho's case, I know I've said this before, wouldn't be the first player that you go and sign to go and play midfield as a competition for Thomas Partey. However, since he's come in, you can see just how part of a massive part of the transfer policy and bringing these players in is to increase that football IQ and to increase that football intelligence to sort of improve the technical side, if that makes sense. Because the level of quality in the team from a technical point of view has always been pretty good. You know, even at the back end of Wenger, you know, Tom, the players were always good. They were always good technically, but they weren't always the most intelligent, and they would make massive clangers in games. But that's not the case now, and we're able to deal with really tricky situations, and ultimately just overpower teams and just pass them to death. Be a lot more patient with our play. And I agree with you, Tom. I mean, not just half an hour. I think, like against Fulham, that was controlled domination. You know, it was Fulham tried. You know, they gave their all, but they just couldn't get near us, and it's massively encouraging. I'm not getting carried away or trying not to.
Yeah, you are.
But it's massively encouraging when you're going into the final 10, 11 games of the season to have that level of confidence, because it's going to get tricky, isn't it? It's going to get even more tricky, you know. But it was brilliant to see, and I know I've just ranted, but
You're entitled. I mean, come on, that was an epic win since our last epic win.
I think it's just, you know, so for example, you know, if Bukayo Saka, who's been so consistent this season, he's going through a little bit of a slow period. You know, he might be feeling it a bit, you know, physically, but there's so many others that are stepping up, and there's so many others that are stepping in and just saying, you know what, Bukayo, if you need to have a little bit of a break, or you need to take your foot off the pedal a little bit, we can step in and do it. And it's really encouraging. And I mean, what a performance! It was to a very, very high level, and Arteta must have been absolutely buzzing after the game. You know,
he was quite played down though, wasn't he? When the whistle went, he didn't really do
all this like
jumping and hooping around. Probably expected another fine, didn't he? Really,
got to try and keep him on. Got to try and keep their feet on the floor, right? He's got to try and keep him, you know, grounded, I suppose. Because I mean, a performance like that in a young squad, I suppose it's easy for them, or complacency, to come in when you're playing a team like Palace who haven't had a shot on target for about 3 months, you know. So I think, you know, it's important.
No, you've done it now.
That's what I mean.
Podders, what's he done? He's put the curse.
So yeah, it was good.
Jay, we're going to stay with you for 1 minute to talk us through 21 minutes. This opener, Trossard's in swinging corner. He's got a great boot, hasn't he? He can really deliver.
Yeah, it was a great cross, and it was Gabriel, wasn't it? Got the head, and he's got a goal in him, hasn't he? You know, he's got a few goals since, especially the last couple of years. He's popped up with some really important headers, and that was a good one. I mean,
3 goals in 4 appearances against Fulham. He likes Fulham.
Yeah, and he's another one that's come on so well, and you can tell that. You know, even in that Sporting Lisbon game, you know, when he came on for Kivior, you know, that they looked a lot tighter, and what a signing, and great header. But there was only going to be one winner of that header. They didn't want to get anywhere near him, and he was just dominant. So yeah, good header.
Paul, 26 minutes. Xhaka feeds the ball to Trossard, who twists onto his left foot to get past his marker before crossing to Martinelli. Robinson. I don't know what he was doing. He kind of just gave in, didn't he? He just folded up his tent. He kind of just ducked down. He didn't put any effort in. He didn't put a challenge in. Explain that away if you can. He's a defender.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last week's pod, I put a curse on Robinson here, because I quite rate him as a defender, but yeah, it was appalling. I couldn't understand any logical reason why he didn't put a challenge in. You know, it's you know, as a Jay mentioned there about how Saliba, you know, battled so well against Mitrovic. Well, why wasn't Robinson doing the same against Martinelli in the area? Then at least make them fight for the header rather than giving them a free header. And I thought the quality.
He ducked under him, didn't he? He kind of went down and just let him do it.
I honestly don't know what was going on with Robinson in that game, because he just didn't get anywhere near the level I've seen him play in the past before for Fulham. And I watched him quite a bit at Wigan Athletic before he made that move to Fulham, and he looked a really good prospect to me. So he just had a really, really bad day. You know, it was something from the Frank Lampard school of defending that, I think, as well. So it was but yeah,
Frank.
But it was a good header from Marcel as well. He deserved it. And at that stage, then I'm watching the game, thinking this game's over. There's no way Fulham are coming back from this. They're absolutely being wiped out at the moment. And I was kind of wondering, like, if that first disallowed goal had been allowed to stand, then arguably Arsenal go in at half-time 4-0 up. Now, I don't like to draw comparisons with the team quite close to me here, but when that team beat Man United 7-0 and all the plaudits they got, that win by Arsenal Fulham in the London derby against a team in the top 8, to me didn't quite get the level of praise and recognition it deserved, because I think we said before the game, it was a really tough fixture. Marco Silva's got a really good team there. Mitrovic is a threat. they can create chances. Got a really good goalkeeper in Leno. They have been defensively quite strong. So I just thought Arsenal just eased off in the second half. It could have easily been 4-5-6 if you'd really gone for it. But the game was over at half time. The points in the back. The other thing I was wondering about was this an opportunity to go for the goal difference to maybe narrow the gap with City a little bit? I don't know, but I think that's a very, very minor quibble. But apart from that, I mean, what a performance that was! Sorry, Jay, go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think you have to make that decision, don't you? Whether you go for the goals or you go to rotate, and I think we managed. He obviously chose the latter, and to rotate players and to have a game. I mean, it's never done until it's done, but I never felt that Fulham were ever going to come back. They were just they were beaten.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And there was no belief there, was there, from their point of view? No. So I think Arteta definitely chose to rotate. So yeah.
I think we surprised a lot of people as well. Here's a point I want to get to. Trossard kind of brings Martinelli to life, doesn't he? We were saying a few weeks ago that Martinelli was struggling without Kieran Tierney. Trossard seems to get the best out of him, a bit like Jesus. And it was really nice to see that Martinelli is bang on form, isn't he? What's he got? 3 goals recently. He's on fire, the boy.
Yeah, he's electric, and he seems to be enjoying playing through the middle, doesn't he? So Eddie's picked up a bit of an injury at a bad time, and now got Jesus back. But it was encouraging. It was good to see Arteta say that Jesus has got to earn that spot back, because he has, hasn't he? Because scoring goals and it's the forward players still that the goals are being spread around, and so yeah, he looks. I mean, to think, what do we pay for him? 6 million for Martinelli. I mean, it's just what's he worth now?
Would like to say is Paul, having Jesus back. What a shot in the arm for this run-in, this 11-game run-in. It's a bonus, isn't it? We've got players coming back that are going to be crucial to us.
Yeah, I think as Jay said, it's a bonus if he can get back in the team. I totally agree with Arteta's comments after the game. Making a statement there that no one's bigger than the team. No one's guaranteed an automatic selection. And I think he has to work his way back into a starting position. I think that'll come around quite quickly, to be fair, because he does bring such quality to the team. But I think when Jesus first got injured, I know on the pod here the talk was, well, this could be quite, a blow to the title push, but it hasn't worked out that way. They've managed to. I think that the signing of Trossard in particular has just put a new dimension to the attacking play, a different way of getting results as well. You mentioned there, Tom, he's improved players like Martinelli. He's established partnerships, throughout the team. So yeah, obviously it's a massive boost having Gabriel Jesus back on the side. He's going to cause opposition defence all sorts of problems once he's back to being fully fit. And it would have been good for him to score that goal in the second half, when he's through with a good chance. But that will come. That will come. And it's just I think I mentioned at the start of the pod about the bench is looking a very high quality bench at the moment, and of course Nketiah wasn't even on the bench, so that's another one to come back in as well. So yeah, I think I would guess, and I don't know what you two think, but I would have thought the game against Spurs in Lisbon on Thursday might be a good opportunity to start Jesus to see to get him back up to match fitness.
Absolutely. I think that's the ideal opportunity. Squeeze him in for, even if it's 40 minutes, see how he stands up. But I think you've got to, if he's going to get back to his best in the Premier League, you've got to give him some time. What about you, Jay?
I think Arteta will go, to start with, I think he'll go as strong as possible. I think Jesus will probably...
Yeah, we need to get this one out of the way, don't we?
I think, because we're not ultimately we're not winning the game. The tie, I think, will go as pretty much as full strength as possible, barring unless there's been any injuries, in training. But I mean, even with that in mind, if Jesus did start, he's such a massive player for us that, I'd quite like to see it. I'd quite like to see him start that game and see how sharp he is. But I think ultimately Arteta's, I think he's not a fool, is he? If we go out on Thursday, due to massive rotation or dropping the wrong players, then obviously the knock-on effect from that, in the league form isn't always going to be what you want, is it? So
yeah, I think we can't afford to really lose that one simply for momentum, really. 38 minutes, Saka and Odegaard played a quick 1-2 down the right with Saka cutting the ball across to Martinelli. He rolled it into Trossard, who faked a shot to gain space for himself. Curling shot, effort going wide. 42 minutes, Ramsdale plays a ball straight to Pereira. There was a couple of incidents in this game where Ramsdale didn't really look himself, but he made up for it in the second half, didn't he, Paul? But he did scare me at the back for a minute. I thought we had Leno back.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before, that sometimes his footwork isn't quite as good as what it should be, and it can sometimes create unnecessary problems, for the defence. But yeah, but as a goalkeeper, he's outstanding. It's just, I think he just needs to work on his distribution a little bit more, or maybe not being so risky. There are sometimes when as a goalkeeper. I remember speaking to Neville Southall, and he was saying, I can't understand the modern goalkeeper trying to play the way out of football. Get the ball, clear it. That's your job as a goalkeeper. Just clear the danger. That's your first task as a goalkeeper. And I think that kind of, there's still a logic behind that. But yeah, goalkeepers win games, by their ability, by their saves, by the reaction. I think Ramsdale ticks all those boxes. Just get rid of the diving on the ball. Sometimes just get rid of the ball, clear the danger, and then put the pressure back on the opposition.
I think when he first joined us, there was this sort of thing that he had to do as he was told, and then he branched out a bit, didn't he? It wasn't just playing out from the back; he was booting it up the field as well. Let's talk about the goal of the game for me. Martinelli slides the ball down the left side of the box with Trossard hitting the gas. He gets to the byline, chips across into Odegaard. Jay, what can you say about Martin Odegaard? I panicked. When he got the ball, he seemed to take forever to put it in. But he took an extra touch, and it was right in the back of the net.
Oh, never in doubt. Never in doubt. Never in doubt. Emphatic finish. And I thought on the day he was superb. I think that you're going to struggle to find a better player at the moment in the league. I think he's so full of confidence. There was a lovely little nutmeg in the second half. I don't know if you saw that, when he a lovely one-touch nutmeg and then played it out to Saka, and he's a top player. Just before that, in the build up to that goal, we were completely dominating the game. It was like Ole football, they weren't getting anywhere near us, and it was full of confidence. And as soon as that third goal goes in, it's completely game over. He's a top player, and I don't know if you saw at the London football awards, he got player of the year, and he said he's found his home, and he feels at home, and he's found his home, and he's obviously a massive he's an absolute key member of everything good that we're doing at the minute. And alongside Thomas Partey in the middle, you notice it so much when he's not there, don't you? Against Lisbon, he was, I'm not saying we didn't get the result because he wasn't playing, but we look so different, don't we, when he's not in there, and he's a top player scoring goals, and that finish, just perfect, emphatic into that far corner.
Do you know what it is, Jay? It's like those moments when you see Arsenal at the moment at their slickest. It reminds me of Wenger's best teams. I know that's people are going to go, "Shut up, Tom. What are you talking about?" But it's that vibe, it's that energy, it's that why you want to pay your money and why you want to see football either on the telly or you go there yourself. It's that sort of energy that you want.
I think thinking back to the old, like the Wenger days, we just, that sort of number 10 type midfielder didn't really exist. He didn't really have, it was more Patrick Vieira was your box-to-box midfielder, and next to him, Gilberto's, who is your defensive midfielder, and then Wenger's better teams or best teams always attack with pace out wide, whether it was Henry or Pires or Reyes or Ljungberg, obviously Bergkamp pulling the strings. But that's why, Ødegaard, it's so like he's so effective in that position, because every team looks for that number 10, don't they? Whether it was, you think of the great number 10s recently, sort of David Silva for City, who very similar to Ødegaard, so cute with his passing and never seems to be hurried in possession. And then, ultimately he's slotted in so well. And I mean, he's just a breath of fresh air. But if if you were to, I'm sure if Wenger was to choose one player from this team now, I'm sure Ødegaard would be definitely in the top 3 that he could have back in the day. So yeah, top player.
He'll be right in there. Second half, well, Fulham actually turned up for that one, made it quite sticky. I felt it was going to be one of those sort of halftime bollockings, and out they come and they tighten up, and they certainly did. And they could have even had a couple of half chances tucked away. Arteta's win ratio is 59.5%. It's the highest of any Arsenal manager in history, not including caretakers. Second on that list is Arsene Wenger with 57.3, while Emery is third, 55.13. Arsenal have won 73% of their games in all competitions this season. Arteta, 100 games, 100 wins rather. What can you say about him? No wonder he picked up a Manager of the Year award. Standout performances, Paul. Who are you going to pick out from the Arsenal?
I think you can probably guess Trossard. I thought Trossard was just superb from start to finish. 3 assists, he's a constant danger. And I mean, from your perspective, are you glad that you got Trossard rather than Mudryk?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I never wanted him anyway. Well, it's quite funny. They've got him down as 007, haven't they, at the moment, because he's not delivering at all. But he's a young prospect, Mudryk, and I think that was the appeal for Arteta. Bring him in and obviously coax him and bring him along. But I think we needed someone who could just hit the ground running. And that's what we got with Trossard for no money at all. When you think that we spent 50 million on Ben White and we got this guy for what, 24? Was it 24?
Yeah. It's an incredible bargain for what you brought to the side. Because I think I remember me and Jay speaking a while ago about bringing in, he wouldn't need an adjustment period because he got that Premier League experience and he's such a quality footballer. He can probably fit and blend into any team anyway. Whereas with Mudryk, as you say, Tom, you're not quite sure how he's going to adapt to the Premier League, how many games are going to take him. And at this stage, when you're challenging for the title, you need players to just come in and slot into the team seamlessly. So, for all sorts of reasons, A, he's been a great buy, but B, to me, there were lots of contenders for man of the match because Arsenal was so good on Sunday. But I just thought he was the one who stood out from, particularly with the first half performance. What
about you, Jay? Who stood out for you?
I mean,
sport for choice, weren't you? Really?
I agree with everything Paul said. You can't give it anyone else other than Trossard. Like we've already said, I thought Ødegaard was really good. Martinelli was really good. I thought they all were defensively good. Even I know you said Ramsdale's distribution maybe was a bit off, but I think ultimately, like Paul said, when they're encouraged to take risks, so he's going to continue to do that because more often than not it's going to come off. And I think that I'll always sort of encourage the players to take those risks because ultimately it's worked all season, hasn't it? But I do agree with what Paul said. Sometimes it does need to go rosette. He's got to be Trossard. I mean, 3 assists, you can't not give it him, can you? So
there you go, Podders. It's a clean sweep. We're going for Trossard. I can't disagree with anything that's been said. Getting back to Ødegaard, I'm still frozen, but we'll get out of that. Jamie Redknapp spoke about him and said, right now he's number 1. There's nobody better. Redknapp said, normally we would say Kevin De Bruyne is the best midfielder, but not at the moment. Something's not quite right. Do you agree with that, fellas?
Go on, Jay.
No, you go, mate. You're okay.
No, I think it's hard to disagree with us. I think Kevin De Bruyne has probably suffered a little bit from Guardiola's constant meddling in terms of roles, positions, how he wants his players to operate. But yeah, I think at the moment, Odegaard, he's probably. Jay mentioned before about this role he plays in the Arsenal team that Arsenal never quite had before. So yeah, to me, I'd agree with what Jamie Redknapp said. It's not often I agree with Jamie Redknapp.
Yeah, I don't think he's wide of the mark. I think a lot of people. I've got to ask you, Paul. I've got to ask you this: Marco Silva, he's the right fit for Fulham. Why didn't he fit with Everton? What happened there?
I think Marco Silva's main downfall was, I thought his recruitment was excellent. He brought some good players to the team. He had a very adventurous style of playing, which quite endeared himself to fans as well. I think the two things that brought him down were, one, catastrophic defending from set pieces. I think that was emphasised by when Millwall knocked out the FA Cup with the last-minute header. And secondly, he just the general frailty of the team in dealing with attacks from the opposition. He never quite seems to have got that defence totally organised in a way that could grind out results. There were one or two games where, with a bit of luck, he might have got a win. I think of that derby game at Anfield in particular, when Jordan Pickford kind of handed Liverpool last-minute winner. That could be a bit of a game changer. But yeah, it just towards the end, the fans have lost belief, and you know yourselves, once you start to lose belief in the manager, then it's over. I think since he's left and since he's done
to be honest, Paul, you've had about 57 managers in the last 5 years, haven't you? I mean, they go out the door quicker than anything.
And I know that's not counting the caretakers either. I think as well, there's been a bit of a revision about Silva's time at Everton now. So given what followed him, there's quite a few people saying, well, hang on, maybe we should have given them a bit more time, because when you think of who followed them, like Sam Allardyce, Rafa Benitez, I think if fans had known those two were going to come in instead, I think they would have kept faith with Silva. So yeah, it just sometimes it just doesn't work out for a manager of the club, and I think he's found the right kind of level at Fulham. And without being disrespectful to Fulham, I don't think there's quite the same level as expectation of Fulham as what there is at Everton in terms, what's expected from the crowd in particular. So, yeah, but I'm glad he's reinvented himself. I'm glad he's managed to get back into the top division. Nothing against the guy. He was always very positive about his time at Everton. So, I'm glad he's doing well.
Have you heard that he may be considered for the Spurs job if Conte bails? That would be interesting. What would you do, Jay? You'd stay with Fulham, wouldn't you? Because that's a poison chalice, that pair of monkeys down the road.
No, you wouldn't take the Spurs job. Not at all. Never. Ever.
Under any circumstances,
Never.
even if they offered you a very flash car and a house.
Just ruins your career. Just a career ruiner, isn't it? Just a career suicide.
Right, let's do the match stats then. We'll do Fulham first, obviously, and then Arsenal afterwards. So 12 shots for Fulham, 15 for Arsenal, 2 shots on target for them, 7 for us, 44% possession for them, 56 for us, not sex. 433 passes, 539 for us, 82% pass accuracy, and 86% for us. Now, no Lauren today. She's feeling a bit poorly. She's a bit under the weather. What's the point of moving to Barcelona when you're going to pick up illnesses? That's not what it's all about, is it? You go out there for the life, the bars.
Must be Spanish flu.
Right, let's go through that match then at Reading. It was a dirty, windswept, blustery evening at Meadow Park. The attendance was 3,964. The side, I'm going to do you proud here, Lauren, okay? Because I'm not very good with these names. Zinsberger, Weinreiter, Ruben Moyle, Raphael, Maritz, Valti, Kim Little, Leah Williamson, Caitlin Ford, Manham and McCabe. Most notable, I suppose, Podders, was that Williamson was in the middle of the park instead of in her usual defensive slot. And I've got to be honest with you, she played an absolute blinder. She was here, there and everywhere. She was pressing forward. It was a complete revelation because I'd never seen her do that before, but she really did kick through. Reading were poor, and it underlined where their current league position is. Second week in a row where the girls have played. Liverpool looked dreadful, and Reading looked a class below. At times, the condition of the pitch didn't really help the flow, and it was a bit detrimental to Arsenal's usual slick passing. In fact, it looked really scrappy in the second half when the heavens opened and it was just coming down in sheets. Goals, Little kicked off the scoring from the spot after 4 minutes, stroking the ball emphatically past Grace Maloney, and Katie McCabe had one very contentious penalty. I mean, there was no chance of that being a penalty I mean, if VAR had been present, I doubt she would have got anything anyway. But Manham's tap in for the Gunners, a 2-goal buffer in 44. Mukandi, I think, used to play for Arsenal, then turned the ball through into her own net shortly after the interval. And Leah Williamson, who was ace on the night, was on target for the first time in over a year, pouncing onto the ball at the back stick in a dominant display after 69 minutes. She was my player of the match, full of running, ideas, energy, deserving a goal and an outstanding performance. The interesting thing, Podders, will be if the England manager decides that instead of being a defensive player, she can now go into the midfield, because she has got the tools. That's for sure. Let's go through the match stats. Arsenal first, and then Reading. 26 shots, 3 for them. 15 shots on target for us, 0 for them. That's how big the gap was in class. 71% possession for us, 29% for them. 597 passes for us, 250 for them. 85% pass accuracy for them, 60% for us. Reading are going to struggle. They're 9th already. And the next game up for the girls is the 25th of March at 1500, and it's North London derby with Spurs happily struggling down the bottom. 3 points off the bottom, actually. So it couldn't happen to a nicer side, could it? Right. Let's look at the 2 games ahead then. We've got Sporting, and then we've got the Palace, crumpled phallus at home. Now, let's do Sporting first. Jay, what's your thoughts on that? Because it was a feisty old affair, wasn't it? There was lots of prickliness over there, and I think we did well to get a 2-2 draw. Because at one stage, it didn't look like we were going to come away with much.
No, I thought we did all right. I thought we did okay. You know, he heavily rotated. Like I said earlier, I don't think that'll be the case. I think he'll go. We'll be pretty full strength. And yeah, they were diving around a bit. And there was a little bit of needle, but I fully expect us to have a bit too much.
I like those games, though, don't you? I like a bit of prickle.
Yeah, and yeah, it was ultimately, I think it was a good result, a 2-2 over there. They're not a bad side, but I still expect us to have a little bit too much for them. And I don't know, I would say 3-0 win.
Paul, what do you think? You've sort of gone on about them being quite a tough side to crack, but we should have, with these 2 games, home advantage obviously counts a lot, doesn't it? Especially with the way the Emirates is at the minute.
Yeah, I think home advantage in the second leg is usually important. So I think, if the crowd gets behind the team from the start, there's no reason why Arsenal shouldn't go on and to get a convincing victory. And I kind of agree with what Jay said earlier about playing the strongest team in this game, because when you think after the Palace game, there's a 2-week international break. So why don't you just play your strongest team and, and keep the momentum going? Because as you said, Tom, I think that to be knocked out at this stage would be hugely frustrating and would just create 1 or 2 little doubts among certain elements of the Arsenal supporter base. And you don't really want to be cultivating that kind of negativity. So, yeah, I think I can see Arsenal comfortable 2-0, 3-0 win. I don't see Lisbon having enough to come to the Emirates and get a victory. And I think, as we said during the pod now, there are so many options on the bench that if they didn't quite get off to the start that they wanted, Arteta's got enough possibilities there to come onto the pitch and make an impact. So I really can't see anything other than an Arsenal victory in this one.
One thing I didn't touch on, and I meant to touch on during the Fulham game, was Saka, as you mentioned or hinted, Jay, looked very tired. And whereas before we started sort of investing in the right sort of players to fill that bench up, we were worried that he kind of be burnt out and we'd be short. We've now got real options, haven't we? We've got Nelson, and we've got Trossard who can play across the front three. We've got Jesus back. It's not a panic zone. Surely he's due for a little rest, isn't he? Because he's been kicked lumps out of all season.
But like Paul said, there's a two-week break coming up. I know he's probably going to be involved for England, but you'd like to think that Southgate will make an intelligent,
Hold on, Southgate and intelligence in the same sentence.
Make the right decision.
Give your head a wobble.
Because I mean, although the players that you mentioned, and I suppose we have got depth, and none of them are at Saka's level on that right side. None of them. Smith Rowe's still coming back. He looks. It's a slow process for him, after the injury that he's had. And Nelson, although he had that brilliant moment against Bournemouth, he's still not played much. But he's still got it in his locker, even at 80%. He's still superb, and he's still getting to that byline, and he's still cutting the ball back, getting into great positions. I agree. I'd love it if we had a carbon copy replacement, but we haven't. So I think you might see the rest. I don't think he'll be rested against either Lisbon or Palace.
What do you think, Paul, about these international breaks? So we'll push on in a minute, but I've got to be honest with you. I just find them a real annoying sort of setup. They're a waste of time. They come up with all sorts of ways to play football 12 months of the year, messing about with the World Cup, stretching the season out, and now we've got these hideous breaks.
Yeah, I find it quite frustrating because, like you and Jay would probably agree, it just takes away the momentum from the season. You're looking forward to a title battle here. You're at the top of the league, and suddenly 2-week break. And when you're challenging for the title, what's the first thing going through your head? Injuries. You don't want Saka to get injuries. You don't want someone to come back from who's playing with an international team, and then picking up. Me with Jesus, I assume he'll be selected for Brazil during the international break. You don't want him to be coming back with a knock or an injury. So yeah, it's a massive complication. I think you mentioned there, Tom, the proliferation of different competitions is just quite frustrating at the moment. And although I'm a massive football fan, I quite like international football, I like the World Cup, etc. But as a club fan, you put your club first. You always put the club first over the country. So in footballing terms, so yeah, it is hugely frustrating. And from Everton's perspective, the big worry would be you don't want another player to get an injury during the international break. It's going to impact on the rest of your season. So I think the timing of this one in particular, I think, needs looking at, because from the English perspective, it's so close to the end of the season, and and any complications with injuries, knocks, etc., can have a massive impact on the outcome of the final places and who finishes where.
Yeah, hopefully someone will look at it. I doubt it because there's too much money involved. Jay, Palace. Obviously, we've got the advantage of being at home. Patrick Vieira, under pressure? I don't think so.
They're not playing great. But what we will get is, it's not going to be, well, I don't know this for certain, obviously, but I think ultimately it's going to be quite a tight game. That they always make it difficult for you, and there's never that many goals when we come up against a Patrick Vieira side, and it's easy to forget that we played him first game of the season, didn't we? We were buzzing about winning away at Palace, and how it being one of those banana skins, usually a banana skin fixture, and look what's happened since that point. It's been crazy, hasn't it, from an Arsenal point of view? The improvement and the consistency, and I expect that to continue into the Palace game. Like I said, it's going to be a tight one. I think we're probably going to squeak a 1-0. It's going to be tight. Fingers crossed, no injuries from either Thursday or Sunday. And look, it'll be a huge boost again. And I know we've been saying this. It'd be another massive mental boost if we can go into the break. What will be 8 points clear of City rather than 5, and City have obviously been there, done it. I don't know if you've seen the score tonight. They've won 7-0, and Haaland got 5. It's like crazy, like Harlem Globetrotter type stuff. But and they've seen it all. City have been there, done it. But just from our point of view, being 8 points clear of them is massive. It would be massive, and I think against a team, Palace, they're not high on confidence at the minute. But I'd take a scrappy 1-0. I'd take it, in off Saliba's arse, win 1-0. 8 points.
Wouldn't that be a coincidence if it came up on Match of the Day or something? We saw it going off his arse. Got a couple of things left, but Paul, we'll do your prediction for the Palace game. I'm gonna go extraordinarily over the top because I actually got the last result right, 3-0. I'm going to go 3-0 again.
Well, I think I'll quite confidently predict that Palace won't score given their recent last shots on target for the last 3 games. So then comes the question of, as Jay said, there is the case that Arsenal grind out the result just to get that 8 points advantage going to the international break. I just think Arsenal got way too much for Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace defence doesn't particularly inspire me either. I know there's a certain thing with Vieira, Arsenal, the mystique about his time at Arsenal. His Palace team play a certain way, but I just think at the moment Arsenal just got far too much to them. Got far too much pace, got far too much creativity. Of course, you've got Trossard, who's the ex-Brighton player, who'll be trying to prove a point against Crystal Palace as well. That old rivalry there. So yeah, I'd say 2-0 Arsenal.
Hey. We're all on it. Right, there's an interesting bit here because after 27 games, we have now got 66 points. And looking back at Manchester City's, because they're kind of saying that, City aren't really delivering, and that's apparently why we are in the top position. So let's go back to 2018-19. After 27 games, they had 65 points. 2019-20 at the same position, 57 points after 27 games. 2020-21, 62 points. 21-22, 66 points. 22-23, 61 points. Now, it just goes to show we're obviously doing our stuff. And from what I've seen from City, they've had a couple of poor games, but nothing terrible. It hasn't sort of dismantled, has it? We're in a hard league and anyone could beat anyone. So, and there's been a lot of football as well. There's a big backdrop to this. But I think that it's actually balanced the opinions out that we are performing to a best of our ability, and we don't have to really worry about Manchester City sort of getting it by default, if you like. Jay, you mentioned the London Football Awards, glitzy affair, odd timing really, because it's not the end of the season, but we'll go with it. Sam Kerr was the player of the year for the WSL, Martin Odegaard player of the year, as you said, Bukayo Saka, well-deserved young player of the year, Mikel Arteta, manager of the season, and Aaron Ramsdale won the goalkeeper of the year. Leah Williamson was looking sharp in a black dinner suit, I thought. Perhaps she's going to play Jane Bond. I'm not really sure. Now, Jamie O'Hara, our favourite knobhead, has come out and said about Arsenal, they've still got to play Man City. And then after they play Man City, they've got to play Chelsea, who have pulled it together. And then they've got to play Newcastle away. All right, 3 huge games where, in my opinion, Arsenal will bottle the title in the week 29th of April to the 6th of May. And that's where Arsenal are going to lose the league. Jay?
You know what? I don't think that's his opinion. I think that's what he's hoping. I don't think because ultimately, what can you base that on? This season, okay, base it on previous seasons, blah blah blah. But this is a different Arsenal team. This is a different group of players. This is, that they've delivered this season so far. And look, if that does happen, if we do slip up against City and Liverpool and Chelsea, we can still do that and still win the league. City have still got to win all of their games, and they've still got to play Liverpool. They've still got to play Chelsea. They've still got to play us. and they've also got to play every other team that they've got to play, and they're not easy games. There's no easy games. Wasn't that long ago City got beat by Brentford. Wasn't that long ago City got beat by Spurs. They're still okay at home. They look as imperious as ever. And look, they, like you made a great point, Tom. They are performing still at their best. Those kind of comments about City are just aimed at trying to basically belittle what we've done. And look, if we don't go and win the league this season, obviously being in the race is amazing. It feels amazing. It feels even better because it's completely unexpected. Nobody expected us to be at this level that we are now. And, it's with each week and each, I've tweeted since the turn of the year, the first day of each month, we're still top of the league by X amount of points, and April's approaching, and I'll be tweeting again, whatever the difference is. And look, we have got ourselves into such a great position that I believe, obviously we'll get, if it does fall apart and we finish second or whatever, there will be those people like your Jamie O'Hara's and your Rio Ferdinands and all those idiots piping up saying we've collapsed. But when you consider that our expectation this season was to finish in the top four and was to get Champions League football, then compared to our expectations now, we're going to far exceed that. And when you're not expected to be where you are, how can it be that the team falls apart and bottles it when you're not expected to win those games? You're not when no one's expecting Arsenal to be there. So again, I don't think Jamie O'Hara really thinks that. I think he hopes that, because that Muppet has made so many
he's made some terrible calls, hasn't he? And Laura Woods will sort him out as well.
Yeah,
he's
terrible takes. But look, I think apart from Spurs fans and maybe a few United fans and maybe a few Chelsea, I think the majority of the country wants us to win it. I think that, they wanted to get behind us. And I think if we do, and if it does end up in disappointment and City or we get pipped to the title, I think there'll be not just be our fan base that'll be disappointed. I think there'll be all the neutrals will be, because we're a breath of fresh air, but just going back to an Arsenal point of view, just to be in the race, just to be in the same bracket, in the same sentence, as City and potentially to win the league. None of us thought it, did we, Tom? We didn't see this. We didn't predict this. And
from last year, it's incredible.
Nobody would have predicted it. So, and I'll be honest, I don't think there's not many Arsenal supporters out there who are getting carried away. I don't think there are any. I think it's just we're just taking it week by week, and that's why results against Fulham. You on paper 3-0 win away at Fulham. If you look at the league title, if you don't know too much about the Premier League, that's just a formality. Well, the reason we're all so impressed and we're all so buzzing is because it is a tough game, and it is hard to go there and get the result. And we're not expected to go there and dominate, because of where we were last year. And I don't pay any attention to Muppets like that. And I know there are those fans that are waiting for us to slip up, and there are going to be bumps in the road. We're not going to win every game. I'd love it if we did, but neither are City. City have to win all their games. They have to close that 5-point gap at the minute, and they're not able to do that. If we carry on winning, and if we avoid defeat at City, it'd be a massive plus point, wouldn't it? We don't have to go there and win. We can go there and just not lose. And look, but just to be in the race, it's amazing, and it's a great, it's. Nobody expected it, least of all us, did we? We certainly didn't. So I don't pay any attention to that. Muppet.
Just out of Chelsea, City, and who's the other one? Newcastle. How many points do you think we should be expecting, Jay, from that one? I'll come to you in a minute.
Those three. So I think like I think home form is huge for us. So I think we'll get 3 points against Chelsea. I think we will beat Newcastle as well. I think Newcastle, it's a tough game, but I think their season, I don't know if you watched them against Wolves, but they won the game, but they were lucky, and they got a lot of decent calls, went in their favour. And
I think they've gone off the boil, to be honest.
Yeah, their season's plateaued a bit, and I think we can go there and get the result. And also, I don't think that the atmosphere will be like, it will be hot in there, but I think it won't be as crazy as it was last season. And I think because of that plateau in the season, I think we can go there and get a win. Away at City, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not too confident, just based on how well they're playing at home. But I think we're more than capable of getting a draw. I think we can get a draw. But look, City still have to win all of their other games, and that's where they've got Liverpool coming up. Then I think that's their next fixture. That's Liverpool always give them a good game. And I know they're hot and cold at the minute. Liverpool are, but that's a tricky fixture. So I think we'll get. My honest opinion, I think we'll get 6. I think we'll get beat at City, and I don't hate to say that. I hope we don't, and I hope we avoid defeat. But I've got to be. I think that's just my fatalist view. When in these big games, I'll just I always think the most the worst case scenario. But I think we can go.
That's been an Arsenal's fault for many years. That's made you pessimistic, isn't it? I'm going to go that I think we'll get 7. I think we'll have 2 wins and a draw. I think we can either we beat City and draw elsewhere, or we draw against City.
It feels to me. I don't know if you're, a few years back when Leicester were going for the title and they went to City late in the season and they got 1-1. I think Wes Morgan scored a header, and it was like everybody. I mean, obviously everybody was expecting Leicester to slip up after Christmas, and they never did. And then they went to the Etihad, and they put in a great performance and got a draw. It feels a bit like that. If we can go there, say Gabriel scores a 88th minute equalizer, and it's like that result there might be one of those that when the season's finished, you look back and go that, obviously a draw there. I don't know. I hope we can get something. I just, they are good still. City, aren't they? They are still a formidable opposition.
Well, they're there for a reason, aren't they? They've been consistent, and that's the name of the game, isn't it? Consistency. We've been very consistent this season, and City, well, that's their stock and trade, isn't it?
Just if we do win the league, it's not because of City not playing well. It's not by luck. It's not by because Adrian Doran piped up a few weeks back, didn't he, saying that Arsenal have been lucky in so many situations. It's rubbish. You deserve to finish where you deserve to finish, don't you? The league doesn't lie. Everybody knows that. So we'll deserve it if we do win it.
Paul, out of the games coming up for Arsenal, who do you see as the sticky ones?
Well, I think I agree with what Jay said, by the way. I don't think you need to win a Man City. I think you just need to go there and not lose. And even if you lose, I don't think it's a total disaster. I also think as well, I mean, I know Arsenal is still in the Europa League, but I don't think that's a stronger competition as the Champions League. So City's still in the Champions League as well. They've got some tough games in that as the season progresses. They're still in the FA Cup as well. So you kind of wonder, is that going to have an impact as well? So look at Arsenal's fixtures. Possibly the game away at Anfield, because as Jay said before, you never quite know what Liverpool's going to turn up. But Arsenal are in pole position at the moment. The 5 points there at the top, there could be 8 points there at the top. So all the pressure's on City. Arsenal are in a position now where they can afford to drop points and still win the league title. City are not going to win every game between now and the end of the season. City are still pros at the odd game. When you saw them on top of the week before, how can this team be challenging for the title? They offer absolutely nothing. So they're still capable of the odd performance like that as well. I think, it's winning games at a place like Fulham that win you the title. It's not dropping points at the middle of the table. It's going there, getting the 3 points, keeping the momentum going. And I think, if Arsenal can keep that self-belief going, then they've got a really, really good chance of lifting the trophy. And if I go back to, there was a bad couple about 2 weeks or so when you lost 1-0 at Goodison, drew at Brentford, you lost home to Man City, and you've responded to that with 5 straight wins. So it just shows that the team has got the resilience to come back if there is the old hiccup. Because I think both City and Arsenal are going to drop points between now and the end of the season. But I mean, did Jamie Holly used to play football? Has you been of age with DJ? I was like, not quite sure.
Yeah.
I just think it's Arsenal. Everything is in Arsenal's favour, and I don't buy into this. They're being lucky because City won't have performed the best. You can only play the teams you're playing. You can't kind of speculate about what would happen if X, Y, and Z had occurred in a certain game. So momentum with Arsenal, the belief with Arsenal, and if they just keep playing, it's like you mentioned Leicester when they won the league. It's just keeping the belief going, it's just keeping the momentum going. And going back to what you said, Tom, I think most neutrals do not want Man City to win the league.
Couple of bits left. We've got some books coming out on the 31st of August. Revolution, The Rise of Arteta's Arsenal by Charles Watts. So that'll be one to pick up because he's a great broadcaster and obviously loves the Arsenal, and he's got some real key insights. And then you got Beth Mead has got a book out in June of this year, A Football Hero's Guide to Playing the Sport You Love. Not the most catchy title, but I'm sure there's something in there for everyone. Right, the podcast is brought to you by Manscaped at manscaped.com, and we're offering you a 20% discount with an exclusive code for the Performance Package 4.0 luxury grooming kit. And that code that you need to go to manscaped.com and apply the code ARS03. That's ARS03. It's been brilliant, guys, to talk about this, and what a wonderful life it is at the moment as an Arsenal supporter. You've just got to enjoy it. I keep saying to people, look, all the time this is going like this, no matter what the outcome, you've got to enjoy the performances because they're key. I mean, under Emery, we sucked. They travelled off to Bacau. It was absolutely like watching, I don't know, snail racing. It was awful. We've got some real quality players, we've got some dynamic players, and we're playing like we just love football. And as an Arsenal fan, it's just wonderful to watch. It all unfolds, it washes over you, and it's like being back at the Wenger years. Absolutely brilliant. Jay, thanks ever so much for coming on the old gun room again, and you, Paul, as well. You guys take care. Next one up. Well, we've got a bit of a break until next Tuesday, so I'm going to probably, I don't know, eat twice my body weight, get drunk. You guys take care.
See you later.
Cheers, thanks, Tom. Cheers. Take care.